So before we start, I want to thank Factory Coffee here in Centurion. They've allowed us to film in their lovely coffee shop right here in Jean Crossing. So if you're in the area, please come.
When nobody would, because we are blacklisted.
That is true. I've tried many places. This is the only one that accepted me. So thank you very much. Factory Coffee.
You Starbucks.
Anyway, on to the show. Warrick, this is the first time we actually meet.
Yes, it is. But we've been speaking on WhatsApp.
Yeah, I was there for a while. And
Stop sending me weird shit.
the thing about you is, right, so they attempted to cancel me, yes. And they literally said, he's pro-Trump, pro-Putin, which I'm not, and I mock Zelensky. And this apparently is the reason why I can't have a job.
You mock Zelensky.
Apparently so. That's, yeah, it's not allowed. Not allowed. You do far worse stuff.
I do similar stuff.
In the same vein, and yet you still not cancelled. So I'm just trying to wonder why I am.
Well, this is the thing. I am a hybrid. So I'm Zulu.
Right.
Right? By culture, if you will. Essentially why that is because my great-grandmother was a Zulu woman, Masbia, and my great-grandfather, great-great, was an Italian man named Mr. Paladin, John Baptiste. But my family followed the Zulu lineage in that obviously they were born colored. They were classed as colored during the Apartheid Act. But my great-grand, until the day she died, spoke Zulu, interacted with Zulu people. Essentially, that's what I grew up with. I think I learned to speak Zulu before I learned to speak English. So as I grew older and when I eventually came to Joburg and I started my career, I've always followed that cultural vein because it's what's brought me the most blessings. Like the jobs I got at YFM, the brief was literally, we need a colored guy who can speak Zulu.
Right.
The TV show I got on Live Amp, SABC 1, you have to speak in Nguni language because obviously the audience. And I identify more with Zulu culture and that's how I see myself because as I grew older and I started understanding more, I identified less and less with colored culture.
Right.
And once I understood what colored was, what it meant, where the label comes from, I started saying, no, this is a fucking scam. And everybody's just being scammed. And I went on a podcast and I said that I'm not colored anymore. I've retired from being colored. Obviously I was being sarcastic, but that shit went viral. Got like 14 million views on TikTok. People were DMing me. I was getting death threats from Aldos. And I was like, you'll never catch me. I don't see you motherfuckers.
Aldo sent you death
No, I do. I actually do because I go to Aldos. I've got family in Aldos. My family is very big in the taxi industry there. And friends, family, strangers, everybody had a comment about it. And I found it interesting because I was like, this was a joke. I was making a joke.
Yeah.
And I can't understand why it triggered people so much. And I realized it's because South Africans in general have this obsession with race. Right?
Yeah.
And when I look at you and whatever your race is, I have this preconceived notion of how I expect you to be. Okay? Which works both ways. How I expect you to be as in, I have this character arc of who Roman is or who Roman should be and he's a racist puss and fuck him.
Yeah.
But I also have one that says Roman needs to stay in his lane because he's white. Do you understand? And because he's white, he has to be pro-Trump. He has to be pro-Putin and he has to be against Zelensky as much as he's a racist and he'd better watch what he says because he can't say the same things that Warras says. It's like in America when black Americans are allowed to say the N-word and white Americans are not allowed to say the N-word. It's like, no, you are white. You have to stay in your lane and you have to toe this line and we can toe a different line. So I think that although you and I may have similar views, when you have the views, it's coming from a white position of privilege, blah, 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 tick all the boxes. And when I have it, I'm protected by this race category that I fall in.
Or maybe the difference is you just haven't been educated well enough, you know?
Maybe, yes. I need to unlearn stuff.
Your sort of inherent.
Yes. And I have. You know, to be honest, if I look at who I was when I first came to Johannesburg, I came from Vryheid. It's a small Afrikaans town. I went to Hoërskool Vryheid. The other high school in town was Pionier, which was Afrikaans only, and Landbou School, where school shoes were not allowed. Everyone went to school barefoot. They learned farming and flipping Landbou shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like a dorp. And growing up in Vryheid, that's a very conservative, very backwards town. It's nothing compared to Johannesburg. And when you come from a small town, as all South Africans can attest, it's a completely different way of life. So when I arrived in Johannesburg and I came to varsity here, I was introduced to this whole other world and a whole other way of being. And at the time, I wasn't interested in politics or any of the shit that I'm interested in now. But imagine coming from that small town and then you're introduced into this new culture, this new diaspora.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I felt it as well. I grew up on a plot in the south of Joburg, about 45 minutes south. Afrikaans, like pure Afrikaans. We arrived in 1990, 1991. And, you know, the first thing you realize is like everyone has a gun, like people are scared. Like
Yes. This is the big city.
You know, you got like the neighborhood watchers and the commando system and the farm workers and the farmers, like they arm each other and they're like on the lookout for. So I was very like tense growing up. We got attacked like 3 times. We had to move to the city after a while. But
were you on like a remote?
Yeah, so it's Aikenhof. Walkable.
Oh, yes.
Walkable site. So you're just surrounded by farms all over the place.
And the most famous thing about Walkerville is there was a murder there.
Yeah.
Remember the murder of Lee Matthews, the Indian who killed her?
Correct. So that happened just as I moved out. So I moved down in about 2002 to Johannesburg, and it's a completely different world. And then you go to a private school, private boys' school.
Where did you go to school?
It's called St. Benedict's. Don't even start. I know exactly what you're going to say. Don't even start.
How did you end up being this guy?
But then I went to Wits.
St. Benedict's is going to release a statement saying, we would like to
disavow. But then I went to Wits to do my LB, which I do have, by the way, journalist. And as soon as you go to Wits, you're like, okay, like this world is completely different to anything else.
Yes, because now you have that mixing of culture.
You got Zulus from KZN, right? You got colours from Eldos. You got like Boere from the Free State, all coming to Wits. And it was just before sort of Rose Must Fall and Fees Must Fall. So it was still fairly academic. But it's a big culture shock. You realize actually how many people and cultures there are in this country. And to try to work through that is actually rather tough if you never left your dorpie. And I think a lot of people have dorpies in them.
They've got dorpie syndrome, yes. Yeah. Because you see, when you're confronted with that, so once you put into that mix of people and mix of cultures, you have 2 choices. You can either stay set in your ways, like a lot of colored people do, remain Eldos-ish, whether they are put into Wits, put into Sandton. Do you understand? They kind of have that same attitude. I did a podcast recently where I was speaking about, the death of nationalism versus what it's been replaced with.
I want to talk to.
Yes, right. Yeah. And tribalism. People kind of identify with their respective group.
Of course.
And if you want to change and learn, you have to start mixing with other groups. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Now, it's not easy. I mean, I'm not saying that you need to just fucking force your way into the Zulu group and be like, hey, I'm from a dorpie in fucking Walkerville. What's up, Zulus? It's not going to work. You know what I mean? It's got to happen organically. Yeah. And you actually find that at the higher end, like at the St. Benedict's end and at the fucking St. Stidion's end, from a schooling perspective, the Cares end, you've got this organic mixing of cultures where the boys and the girls that are friends are from all different cultures. Yeah. And they are not sort of like, they don't fall into those brackets. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a privilege of the elite where it's like they get to mix in these different groups.
I mean, definitely.
Yeah, whereas some of us who come from like the Walkervilles and the Hoërskool Vryheids, it's not as easy. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? We don't have access to that elite circle of people. We have access to like the middle class circle of people. And it's harder in the middle class circle of people. Have you noticed that?
Well, I think it's easier than before.
It's easier than before, but it's not. It's almost like somebody from like a St. Stidion's, they arrive in varsity already with the thinking, and they're already in, and they've got their mate, their Musa.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? And they've got their other mate, Llewellyn, the color dog. And they're all just cool, right? Whereas your middle class guy that comes here, he kind of identifies with his group. Now in the Eldos bracket, they identify with their group even more. So imagine the same for like a black person from a rural area, like Vryheid. Yeah. It's even more difficult because they immediately identify with their group when they get here. It's kind of like a stick together type of thing. And it's not uniquely South African. I've got a lot of Zimbabwean friends who are only friends with other Zimbabweans.
Yes.
So it's almost like you came from Zim, okay? You got here and you immediately found the group of Zimbabweans in the Vaal in a res. There's like a Zimbabwean res in the Vaal for the Vaal University. Like, how did you find each other? You know what I mean? It's what people are just drawn to their respective groups, and it creates a challenge for diversity.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I'm sort of anti-diversity.
Do you think people must just stay in their group?
No. I'm not saying we need segregation.
Yeah. Well, that's why you brought me here. I mean, in fact, this interview is happening in Oranje. Help me.
No. So my theory is this, right? 94, we had this sort of Rainbow Nation thing, right? And the Rainbow Nation says, your identity doesn't matter. We're going to usurp that. You're all going to become constitutional liberals. From the Zulu monarch to people in Oranje to the gangster in wherever, Aldo's to whatever. The
gangster in the Cape Flat.
Yeah, in the Cape Flat, right? You're all like liberal, pro-LGBT, like whatever bullshit, right? And I think that has fundamentally destroyed, and that has fundamentally destroyed our society in a way that what apartheid did was suppress identity so much, or it enlarged identity to a degree that was obviously very detrimental to the majority of the country. Like, you black, you are therefore X, Y, Z.
Yeah, you colored.
That became the identity of those people for 60 years. The Rainbow Nation sort of did the same thing in terms of, it doesn't matter what you are, but now you're a liberal. And there hasn't been a time in this country where we could just say, but who are we? As a colored person, as a Xhosa, as a Zulu, as a Pedi, as an Afrikaner. Okay, the Afrikaners are ahead in this regard. But there hasn't been a time where people know who they are, what their values are, what their customs are. And once you know who you are, I think it's much easier to talk to other people. But if you don't know who you are, it's just like this more grey morass.
And I think if you don't know if you're told who you should be,
yes,
you'll have this conflict within yourself where it's like, when I go to Wits, I'm supposed to be this guy. But then I go back home to wherever it is I'm from. And then I'm sort of back into the thinking and the indoctrination and the way that I grew up. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
And if that's your point of reference, when you get to Wits and this other thing is sort of not forced on you, but this is the way it is here at Wits. And it's confusing for you. Like I said, you've got two choices. You're either going to get with the program and try and learn and unlearn what you learned at home and learn this new way of being, this new liberal, inclusive identity that you sort of, some of the other people have, or you're going to be like, and colored people do this a lot. Sorry, colored people. I don't want it to seem like I'm shitting on colored people, but I have colored family. So I know that a lot of the time when I listen to the way they talk and I look at the way they are, they have this thing that I am who I am type of thing. Me, I'm a colored, me, I'm a bushy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I hear them say stuff like that, I think to myself, like, you're digging your heels in to be who you are, who you've been taught that you are.
Sure.
And you are cutting yourself off to evolving. Still be who you are. No one is saying change who you are. But you need to evolve so that you can be part of this broader picture. Remember, the Rainbow Nation was supposed to be this big idea.
Sure.
That if we can all get on this boat and we can be part of this broader picture, okay, this umbrella of nationalism, we are all South African. We are all equal under the law. And we are entering this period of transformation where people who have been marginalized and previously disadvantaged and excluded from the system are now going to be integrated into the system, and we're all going to live happily ever after, a better life for all. That did not happen. But they pretended like it is happening.
I mean, what is there to be nationalist about? Like, I'm a nationalist.
Yo, are you proud to be South African?
There's nothing to be proud about.
Well, I don't agree. I think there is a lot to be proud about. But
I love living here.
Yeah.
I defend this place. So a lot of people think my critique of like the government means I hate this. No, I just in the government. It's my right. I can do whatever the fuck.
No, of course. But that's a different matter. But yes, you protect it under the Constitution.
I choose to live here as a choice. Everyone knows I got dual citizenship. I don't want to live in Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, my parents are from there. I was born in France. I came here at the age of 2 or 3. I've been to France numerous times. like, no, mate. Like,
Not for you.
No, I'm saying Nigeria.
Yeah.
Never be able to meet someone like you in France because everyone is
No chance, brother. Only available here.
Everyone is just so constrained by this liberal orthodoxy. Now, of course, we need like 1,000 Afghanis every day because, human rights. Like, we would accept that here.
Look how that's working out for
and we don't. But I live here by choice, and I really want my children to be proud to be living here. They're still quite young. So this is an attempt through a podcast. I'm not Joe Rogan, but an attempt is like, how can we actually do that? Like, what would make us proud to be like, we're South African, of course. Like, we are an exciting emerging market. Diversity is our strength only because we actually know who we are. So we didn't try to usurp it with this liberal orthodoxy. So I'm just trying to grapple with how we can make that happen.
Look, I think I don't hate Mandela and the struggle veterans or the leaders of the struggle movement. I admire them for the idea. Okay, so if we just take it at face value and we assume that they meant what they said, right? Because I know there's a lot of people, especially like on social media, you see how thinking has changed, where people are like, actually, fuck those guys. They sold us out.
They're sellouts.
They're sellouts, and shit like that. Because with the passage of time, people have now looked at, with the gift of hindsight, they've been like, hey, maybe that thing that we celebrated in 1995 was actually a scam because now, look, everything's owned by white monopoly capital or whatever.
As if those people back then would have made different decisions.
100%. Like if it was me,
if
I was at Codesa, I would have. Cool, I feel like they made the best deal available to them at the time. They weren't holding all the cards.
I mean, I think they won a lot more than they were expecting to.
I also think I think they did quite well. I think also, personally, I don't agree with the notion that, there's this school of thought and this message that, apartheid had to end. They had no choice. Let me tell you something about Pura. I grew up with them. They're fucking resilient.
They could have carried on for
a long time. Even if carrying on would have meant a reduction in the quality of life.
Sure.
They would have taken that deal.
These are... They control the army. They control everything.
That's the thing. They had a very powerful army, one of the best in the world. Their solution to sanctions and boycotts and we're not going to sell you oil. Well, fuck it. We'll make oil from coal.
Exactly.
And we'll build Sasol. Do you know what I mean? We're not going to sell you power. No problem. Build Eskom and we'll upgrade.
That's why these SOEs actually exist.
That's it. Right. So if you look at the big industries that they built, they could have gone on for a long time. And I think we've learned, like in Zim, nobody's supposed to buy gold from Zim. But Zim is moving tons and tons and tons of gold a month because there'll always be willing buyers. And I feel like they could have survived that way.
Sure.
Essentially, South Africa would have just become a massive Orania. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Honestly, it would have just been like off the grid of the world.
Sure.
Fuck it. Batten down the hatches. Development of weaponry. And if anybody comes and attacks us, fuck it, we'll fight to the death. That's what I think they would have done. But that would have been stupid.
Yes.
Because there was this other option. I also I think that FW de Klerk, as much as he's fucking, everybody hates the oak, I feel like he was in a very tough position because he was the guy that needed to make that decision. And like any decision, it's a trade-off. Somebody was going to like it and somebody was not going to like it. And I'm very proud of Mandela because if you look at the Mandela from 1992, that guy was a fucking, he was brilliant. There's an interview he did with Ted Koppel. He went to America he went on the road to campaign for sanctions to be kept up. He didn't want America to relax the sanctions against South Africa. And in this interview, he was facing some hard questions from the Jewish society of what and the Black American society of whatever. And they were asking him shit like, why are you friends with Fidel Castro? Why are you friends with Yasser Arafat? These guys, Gaddafi. These are people that are like human rights violators and whatever. And Mandela, he stood his ground and he was like, look, if your friendship comes at the cost of my friendship with them, then you can keep your fucking friendship. But those are the oaks that supported us. Those are the oaks that armed us. Those are the oaks that gave us money. Those are the oaks that took our message to the world. I'm not going to fuck them over now because I need your help.
Yeah.
If you don't help me, then fuck it. I'll go back to those oaks and we'll carry on with the fight that we're fighting. But what I'm saying to you is, I need your help. Don't worry about who else I'm friends with. Because this is what's going on in South Africa. And I feel like as a statesman, of all the presidents we've had, he was the greatest one. So I don't want to take that away from him. However, when it came time to discuss the deal and they were making this arrangement at CODESA, I feel like he took the best deal available at the time. I think it was a very good deal. I think they did get a lot more than perhaps the apartheid government could have given them. But I wasn't there. None of us were there.
Sure.
And with the gift of hindsight, perhaps there were some things that could have been negotiated there a bit differently. Because what followed, in the 30 years since, I feel like the dream that was sold and the Rainbow Nation that was sold and what we've got now is chalk and cheese.
Well, I mean, the irony is that it was working. I made a tweet yesterday. In 2004, South Africa, 5% economic growth. We just won the World Cup bid for the soccer.
For 2010, yeah.
ANC got 69% of the vote. And I said something else big happened. I can't remember.
And that was under the stewardship of Thabo Mbeki.
Thabo Mbeki, right? But in 2004, we were on our way to becoming like the most exciting emerging market African economy the world's ever known.
And that's 10 years post-democracy.
Correct. I mean, if you look at the stats, all the way up to 2008, we were doing like 5% economic growth. If that carried on, we would have 10% unemployment now instead of 42% or whatever it is now.
Because what are we at now? I think we had economic growth of like 1 point something.
For the past 15 years. But it just shows that we actually were on the right track. I remember I was too young to run a business back then, but I could speak to my father and people around me who are much older who had businesses back then who were just starting up in the early 90s. It was the time for boom. Like people made money hand over fist, no stress.
Which shows you that something was right.
Our generation has never had that.
Yeah, no, we've been in the wars.
How old you are, but
I've been 31 now for 6 years.
Oh, very good, very good. I'm 37.
Me too.
But we never had that.
Yeah.
But our parent generation did have it. Like for a period of 12 years, like growth and everything was just like so good. And it was all like sort of fumbled at the last minute. And that really annoys me. Like we can do it. We just need sort of...
Do you think we can do it or we could do it?
Or what's the difference between the two?
Because that time, different people were in charge.
Sure.
Okay? The plan was also different. You had an ESCOM that was starting to fuck out. Now you've got an ESCOM that's completely fucked.
Sure.
You had a Transnet that was functioning. Now it's completely fucked. You had a road network that was functioning. Now if you try to drive from here to Newcastle, you'll have to pass Heidelberg, Standerton, Volksrust. The road is fucked. And I don't know how they're going to fix it. So I feel like there's a lot of things, there's a lot of problems that are so big now that to compare them to that time and what it would take to fix them now, very difficult.
But it's a fumble. I mean, the degradation is sort of intentional now.
I was listening to an interview where the theory is that maybe it is intentional. You see, we don't really know why what is happening is happening. We know what the consequences of it are. So we know the place is fucked, and we know that some people have become fantastically rich while the place is getting fucked. Because, people didn't know this. I didn't know this myself, but I dabbled a bit in commodities. We have a wholesale diesel license. So we sell like inanimate amounts of diesel. We've sold some big deals, some small deals. But the way that it works generally is you sell diesel to power industry. So diesel is obviously put into the tanks of trucks, so big logistics companies, etc. That's how shit moves from point A to point B. And during the load shedding boom, diesel was going everywhere for the generators, right? We had a big contract with a major retailer. We were supplying all of their stores with diesel. And I remember how important and how they used to stress that, we cannot run out of diesel. Because if we run out of diesel, the fucking fridges switch off. And if the fridges switch off, we lose millions in produce that obviously expires. So this was a big deal. Now, if you scale that up to the ESCOM level, we know that ESCOM was running the fucking turbines and burning something like 9 million liters of diesel a day.
20 billion a year.
Now, who's got that contract? Because when I had the one for the major retailer, I was smiling. We're making a lot of money, but nothing compared to whatever the person who puts the diesel in the ESCOM generators was making.
Sure.
Now imagine if I had purposefully designed this system so that when ESCOM is fucked, they have to buy diesel from me. See the same thing with the water tank.
Yeah, that's what we're
Purposeful, what do you call it? Purposeful destruction of water infrastructure. The water tankers get ordered. If it's 100K a water tanker and you're ordering 40 a week, somebody is smiling.
Well, now people are paying for contractors to bring in water tankers into areas where there are no water.
There we go.
So,
So it's like, you understand? So now you start questioning.
Yes.
Why is this happening? Because we see the consequences of what's happening. And we know that somebody is getting paid for it. That's why I say I am inclined to support your statement that it would appear it's happening by design.
So I'm not so
intentionally.
So I'm arguing there is an economic incentive, but I listen to a lot of Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson speaks to Viktor Orban from Hungary. He spoke to Putin. He speaks to the Qatari foreign minister, and his sort of conclusion of those interviews, in a sense, for him at least, for Tucker Carlson, he says that this government sort of seems to love its people. There's ways of looking at that. Like, I don't want to sick
Which government? Our government?
No. The Qataris, the Russians, whoever he's speaking.
Yeah, I love its people.
There's a sort of long-term strategy to make Russia or Qatar or El Salvador. There's a long-term strategy
To make it great.
To make it a much better country than it is right now. And that comes from loving your people, I would think, at the most base level. We can talk about our political power and incentives, fine. But at the end of the day, if the consequences are that your people are better off in 10, 15 years by doing these things, there needs to be a sort of love for your people. Like, it's like a king looking after his subjects, right? I just don't know if we have that yet. I can't think of a time when something was done at a political level that was for the love of the people.
That I agree with 100%. Unashamedly, I can say I've tweeted it many times because it's my honest opinion. They hate the people. They hate them.
And I think
the
fundamental thing that's the problem.
I've been questioning. Imagine that this is the line of I don't care. So this is me caring 0. This is me caring 10%. And then this is me negative caring.
Sure.
Hate. I used to think it was at 0, where it's like, actually, a friend of mine and I have a saying. It says, when you're making money, you don't notice the money that you're losing. In other words, if you're making 3 million and you're losing 30,000, you don't care about the 30,000. You're up 2.97 million.
Sure.
Right? I feel like when you make money, and I've seen like various clips on this, it's like it activates the same thing in your brain as cocaine. You know what I mean? And lowers empathy.
Yes.
You don't give a fuck.
Correct.
Because now you're making money. You fine. You've got a house in Bantry Bay. You've got a Lamborghini. You've got hot bitches around you all the time. Do you really care about the problem of poor people in Alex? Less and less, the more money you make.
Correct.
Now, I'm of the belief that it's become such a greed grab because every government minister in a senior position is fantastically rich. These people are the most brilliant business people that have ever lived. They're fucking brilliant. They just start companies that get massive contracts. Wow, what a coincidence. What is your background, your educational background? What is your business background? Fuck all. I got this job and now I have a company that has 300 trucks. Well, that's great. Now I'm on the board of an international mining conglomerate. Fucking brilliant, brother. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they seem to find themselves in positions that generate them massive wealth. And I feel like the more that's happened, the less they've cared about the people. And I believe, and this is the honest, like if people are honest about it, nobody gives a fuck about poor people. They don't care.
Thank you.
They really don't care about poor people.
No.
And I don't say it in a way where it's like, fuck, who cares about poor people? Let them die. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
I'm saying somebody needs to care about them because they live in abject poverty. They live really shit lives.
They do.
And it's not their fault. They're kind of born into it. And what they need to face to get out of it is more difficult than you coming from Walkerville or me coming from Vryheid.
Sure.
And you and I didn't exactly come from fucking, you know what I mean, millions in the bank.
No, not at all.
But on the privilege scale, they are at fucking negative 1,000.
Sure.
So somebody has to do something to at least empower them with the tools of opportunity. How do you get yourself out of it if I've given you zero opportunity to get out of it? The employment rate's at fucking 40%. Unemployment rate.
Well, because the growth rate is 1%,
Thank you.
right? And why is the growth rate 1%? Because it's enough of an incentive for people to make cash.
Exactly.
At the top.
My thing is, even if the growth rate is at 1%, do I really care when I'm making 5 million a month?
Of course you wouldn't.
I don't give a fuck. Because people are always making money. There's people that are still making money. And those people include everyone in a position of power that needs to make the decisions to effect that growth rate. I don't care personally in my personal capacity because I am rich. I have a massive house in Cape Town. I have fucking 16 cars. I don't give a fuck about these poor people. Give them a grant. Tell them shut the fuck up. I don't have time for this. That's the attitude.
Correct.
And it's not universally, it's not uniquely South African.
Oh, no. Happens
Right? When I first started getting interested in subjects of this nature, I would say it was around 2008, 9, 2010, right? What happened was there was the financial crash.
Yes.
Right? The Wall Street crash. I followed that story very closely because I studied BCom investment management. I wanted to be a stockbroker. So to some degree, I had an interest in what was going on. And for me, what it seemed like was that the bankers in charge of Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns and Morgan Stanley and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, these guys basically had a meeting. If you watch a movie called Margin Call, it explains it very, very well, right? They had a meeting where they were like, hey guys, the more we fuck the place up, the more money we make personally. And at the meeting, they were like, oh, but we can't do that. Better do something to save it. But in public, but privately, they were like, fuck that. Take more loans. You know what I mean? They were basically, there was CDOs, which were like,
Correct.
You know, to simplify it, it was like gambling against the market that you are currently playing in on behalf of your clients.
And they were selling it for
That's it.
1,000x, but there's no value.
No value. They were selling useless, shitty securities, okay, to people and actively betting against it with those people's money.
Correct.
So when the thing crashed, you as the person who invested, you lost big. But us as the bank, we made on the other side. To the point where they fucking crashed AIG, which was the insurance company that was backing all of these loans. But the executives at AIG didn't face any consequences for taking on these risky investments. So when you watch a documentary like Inside Job, or you watch a movie like Margin Call, you realize that although people lost millions and the mortgage market absolutely collapsed and 30,000 people found themselves unemployed overnight, that happened, but the bankers who were making the decisions at the top, some of them were making stupendous amounts. I mean, the Lehman Brothers guy made like $400 million.
And then,
You know what I mean? And he was allowed to keep the $400 million.
the worst part is they all got bailed out by the government and still took bonus.
But when they got bailed out, the banks were saved, not the clients. The banks were bailed out. Now, that showed me that whether it is in corporate or whether it is in government, because again, there was, what is his name? Hank Paulson. He was the government guide overseeing all of this bullshit. He knew what was going on. He came from Bear Stearns. He left Bear Stearns to take the government job. And when he took the government job, he sold his Bear Stearns stock for fucking hundreds of millions. So he didn't really, you understand, same thing. He's sitting so comfortably that when you come to him and say, hey man, Roman is going to lose his house living there in Connecticut. He's going to be homeless with his family. Hank is like, yeah, but I made 400 mil. I really don't give a fuck about Roman. And I think we are suffering from the same problem now. We've got people in charge that are fantastically wealthy, that you are going to and pleading with to say, yo, kids in Eastern Cape are crossing fucking rivers to get to school. This is a fuck up. We need a bridge in this bitch.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know. I just got the new G63 on order. I'm not sure if that's a priority for me right now. Do something. You can't do anything. They're walking around with 12 bodyguards with fucking automatic rifles, Brahma.
But which is why we need a sort of new breed of leader. And I don't want to use the word politician because I know them and they're not to be trusted. But we need a new breed of leader that actually sort of loves our country. Right?
Yeah, but from where?
I don't know. Because the problem we face, I'm a big fan of elite theory. I don't know if you know elite theory. Like democracy is basically a sham. Power moves from elites to elites.
Yes.
So the Democrats have their own elites. The Republicans have their own elites. Everywhere in the world, you got elites on both sides.
100%.
Here, I don't think we have an elite that's anti-GNU or anti-ANC. I can't think of any elite, black or white, that would say, okay, the system needs to change. We're going to pump 2 billion rand.
But elites all over the world are only against the system that doesn't benefit them.
Of course.
So Putin, 90% of the elites in Russia, 95% of them, love Putin because he sees to it that they're all paid. Your fucking Roman Abramoviches and co, they love the rock. They'll die for him.
Sure.
Because he has empowered them to buy yachts and run Gazprom, and you understand? They love that guy. Here, we have an elite that is benefiting from the status quo.
Correct.
I don't think we have an elite that necessarily is disadvantaged by the way things are. Unless
I agree.
The place completely collapses.
Sure.
Okay, cool. If the place completely collapses, even then, they just go.
Yeah, of course.
That's, worst case scenario, I jump on my jet and I fuck off. I remember during COVID, there was an article written about, remember when the vaccine came out?
Yeah.
And they said that Johan Rupert jumped on his plane and fucked off to London to go and get his vaccination because we didn't get it yet. It was available in the UK, whatever. I thought to myself, Jesus Christ, that is like another level of opulence where it's like, oh, the vaccine's out. I think I'll just go get mine in London. Ready the jet, Roman. Do you know what I mean? That's the level of elite that some people are. And I love Johan Rupert. I'm not hating on him. I'm saying, if I was Johan Rupert,
You'll do the same.
brother, I'd jump on my jet and I'd fuck off.
We want new ideas in this country, which we sort of desperately need. I don't see it coming from sort of the political elites that we have.
No.
I don't see it coming from the capitalist elites that we have. I don't see it coming from civil society elites. So where the fuck are new ideas going to come from? That's my concern. Like, are we going to have a country that we can actually be nationalist about or not?
I actually don't know. And I'll tell you why. I feel like the generation that's coming up now, all right, so let's call it, my son is 15. And he goes to a private school. And he's got friends who are also in private schools. So not only his school, but his peers, essentially. That generation doesn't seem to me to be interested in anything remotely close to this. I don't know. Maybe the guy will get to matric. He's turning 16 this year, so he's in grade 10. I don't know. Maybe he'll get to matric and something will change. Maybe when he gets to varsity, something will change. But I'm not seeing the thinking coming through in our varsities. When I look at the type of shit that people at UCT are protesting about, I'm like, we are fucked. When I look at the type of shit that students at WITS are protesting about, I'm like, we are fucked. Every time I come to Pretoria, because I come here quite often, I go to Sira and visit my bras. I was here the other day, I went for a meeting actually at the minister's office. I went to the union buildings, and when driving around Pretoria there for Tracker Street, whatever, there's like 3 or 4 protests on the go at the same time.
Yeah, true.
In fact, I attended a Women for Change march, which was also a protest, but anyway, they're my people. Shout out Women for Change. We provided security for their handover of a, what do you call that thing?
Memorandum.
Memorandum, right? GBV, help us. I got lost because we parked our cars and got out at the wrong fucking protest. That was a teacher's one. I said, hey, where's the Women for Change? They said, oh man, this is a side to what, my nigga, you in the wrong place. I said, oh shit. Back in the cars. Got back in the cars. Yo, where are you guys? They're like, no, we are by the union buildings. I'm like, we by the union buildings. So there was a simultaneous protest. You understand? So I haven't seen a protest related to something. And it's not to say, obviously it's a priority to the people protesting.
Of course.
That is the most important thing at the time. And that's fine.
There's lots of terrible things to deal with.
Yeah. To Warrick and Roman right now looking for answers, I haven't seen a protest for this reason. And to go back to the Wall Street example, till about 2010, you had the Occupy Wall Street movement,
correct,
which Obama actually fervently supported in his run to the presidency, where they were saying, yo, we can't let the banks and big government collude the way that they do, because this is the end result. Because what happened wouldn't have happened had the system not been deregulated at a legislative level to the degree that it was. But the people who were busy with the deregulation were all former Wall Street employees who took government jobs, or vice versa. They were government employees who got in there, deregulated the place, fucked, and then moved on to cushy careers at the banks after the bailout. You've got a Nancy Pelosi who is like 2IC, bro. She's fucking, she's high up there. Most talented trader in the history of trading. She just knows which stocks are going to go up and which ones are going to go down between her and her husband. But then you look into it and you're like, this bitch is passing the credit card legislation in Congress.
Yeah.
And she just made $16 million on a credit card on a Visa trade. What the fuck? You know what I mean? So,
Sure.
as I say, it's not unique to South Africa.
No, definitely not. But we feel it much more because we're a much smaller economy.
Good point.
A lot more
Yes.
diverse.
Because remember,
Thinking.
when you're losing money, when you're making money, it's hard to see the money that you lose.
Sure.
America is making 37 trillion. So if they're losing 3 trillion, it's not a big deal. How long does it take us to make $3 trillion?
I mean, they wanted to raise the VAT rate to 0.5%.
We shit this idea of
We should have brought in 13 billion rand. Now, I'm sorry, in a R1 trillion budget, that is fuck all. But they wanted to bet the entire government on 13 billion rand.
And how much would it have hurt the people paying that?
Oh, it's completely.
That's the problem.
Completely.
Is again, if they love their people,
Yeah,
why do they fuck them
I know.
all the time?
And
I've yet to see a decision
Yeah.
made that benefits the poorest of the poor, whom you propose you represent.
I mean, they sell a lot of bullshit ideas, like the NHI, which is the most
Crack idea.
communist-centered. I mean, even the Soviet Union didn't go this far, right?
But
In terms of
the
centralized.
NHI doesn't work anywhere ever.
No.
And the countries that they use as an example where they say, oh, but it's working there. It's like, yeah, but there's only 10 million people in Norway.
Yeah.
It's working because there's 10 million people.
got
And they've got massive wealth.
And they got 2 trillion rand wealth fund. I mean, 2 trillion rand,
fast.
$2 trillion wealth fund.
So you can't compare, you know what I mean? We've got 60 million people, 50 million of whom are poor. The same people that they hate so much.
Correct.
All it was, this is another thing that they do. They make the things that they should be solving somebody else's fault and somebody else's problem. And I said this on the other podcast. It's like, when they run out of things to blame, like where it's like, okay, guys, we looked at this problem and we've come to the conclusion that you are lying. This was not the reason, this was not the reason, and this was not the reason. So how the fuck are we solving this problem? They blame the big A. I call it the big A. Not AIDS. Apartheid.
Apartheid, yeah.
Now, apartheid is used as a blanket thing to blame. Okay? And what it does, what I don't appreciate about, like I said, for me, there's things about Mandela and the struggle heroes that I really admire. Okay? And during apartheid, I think that they made serious sacrifices that I myself, I can sit here and tell you I wouldn't have made. I wouldn't have fucking gone to jail. Do you know what I'm saying? To be part of a movement. Really, I'm being honest. Especially if I know I've got my family, I've got my friends, I've got my children, I've got my livelihood, and you're asking me to put all of that at risk to fight this fight that we might actually not win.
Correct.
And then I'm fucked. I'm going to get killed. I'm going to get hanged. That's a lot to ask. So a lot of them really did take on or make the ultimate sacrifice, and I respect them for that. Okay? Cool. But that is over. Okay? Now we are in a period of time where there are millions of people born after that it was your responsibility to build something for, that they could inherit, they could further grow, and they could leave for their children and their children's children.
Correct.
And you haven't done that.
Yeah.
And in the time that you haven't been doing it, you have become fantastically wealthy. Now it's like, are you saying we need to pay you back for the sacrifices you made? Because then give us a number. Then we give you the money, then you fuck off. Then let us handle it. Or are you just a greedy cunt? Are you genuinely evil and you don't give a fuck because nobody cares about poor people?
Maybe it was that all along.
Maybe it was that all along. Maybe this whole plan is by design. Because like I said, I've been hearing a lot of talk that this is being done purposefully to destroy the ANC. But by destroying the ANC, you're also destroying the country because it's the ruling party. Julius Malema was speaking not so long, like a few days ago, saying that watch what's going to happen. John Steenhuisen is going to become president. And I was like, well, that's good news because then it means Helen Zille is the president.
Hi, boss.
Khaled Jan.
I could become chief of staff in the presidency.
Brother, you fucking keep that role. I'll show you how to do it. But I wanted to ask you, let's say, for example, Roman became president tomorrow.
Yeah.
What are some of the top things you would do? Like immediate priorities?
Cut spending by a third. Easy. Like cut spending.
Okay.
Destroy the Department of Education, give out vouchers instead. Department of Education has a budget of 220 billion rand a year. You completely destroy the department. 220 billion rand divided by 20 million kids, kids that can't go to private school.
Yes.
Give them a 25 grand voucher a year. They can take their voucher to any school they want and get educated wherever the hell they want. Number one. So cut spending by a third easily. We can have a 700 billion rand budget government rather than a 1.2 trillion rand budget government. Number two, bring in Starlink. Internet access is a fantastic purveyor of future success. People are going to watch porn.
What is the issue with Starlink? Because when I said bring in Starlink, people are like, fuck that, we have AfriHost. And I was like,
yeah, sure. Have you been to Matatiele, bro? Like, have you been to like the...
That's what I was thinking. I was like, surely Starlink, because I remember during the floods in America, Starlink, Elon unleashed Starlink for free. So essentially what would happen is a drone or whatever would come and bring you that, you get the pad, and then it links to the fucking satellites. And now people could say, yo, we stuck on our roof in Walkerville. And then they could get rescued.
Correct.
So I was like, okay, clearly this thing works anywhere, anytime, doesn't matter how rural you are.
Correct.
And when people are like, oh, but we've got coverage nationally, I'm like,
we got rain. I'm like, no, bro.
Have you been to Vryheid? Like in Vryheid, you're not catching 5G in Vryheid, bro.
But if you have internet, universal internet access, right, like you do in South Korea or places like that, okay, people are going to watch porn on it and do TikToks and whatever. It's fine. But you can organize. You can have far more security. You can actually get to know what other people are doing. You can sell stuff online. You can learn how to code. You can do so many things. You have the knowledge of the world in your phone.
In the palm of your hand,
And there are a large percentage of South Africans who have never ever seen that. And I think that is diabolical in the year 2025, where Americans are sending rockets to space and building nuclear power stations just to run AI data centers. We've got some poor people here in this country who have never seen the internet. I think it's diabolical. That will solve far more problems than anything else. So cut spending, get Starlink, get rid of race legislation. Those are the three things. Immediately.
What do you, when you say on the Starlink point, right, access to the internet, I agree. When I was at 5FM, there was a guy that used to come to the SABC parking lot late at night and he used to wash cars in midwinter, dude. Poos cold. But anyway, this bro was washing cars because SABC runs 24/7. So there's, on an average weekday night, he'd be washing like 20 cars, right? Which is decent money for him. He was charging like $50 a car wash. So he was making like a grand. This boy washed cars at the SABC at night. And the reason he did it is because he was studying at UJ. He came from Matateni in KZN. It's like a township outside Newcastle. Dirt poor. Literally came here because he was accepted at varsity because he matriculated with 6 distinctions. He was brilliant. He didn't get a bursary. He applied for a NSFAS loan. He got the NSFAS loan. He came here. He went to UJ and he was studying fucking political science and corporate governance or something. So I met him because he was a Zulu Oak. And I'm from Freya. It's not far from Matateni. And he knew me because he'd seen me on TV. So whenever I'd check him outside the SABC, like he was a big fan,
Yeah.
And obviously seeing him every night, I got into more of his story. And besides being really brilliant and really poor, he was very inquisitive. Like he was always asking questions and we'd have long chats. We would have chats outside the SABC at 10 o'clock at night for half an hour. I'd talk shit while I'm smoking. He was there washing the car or finishing off the car, whatever. And he was my bro, like I really liked him. And one day he took me to where he stays. I went to drop him off. And bro, he was staying in like a fucking 1-bedroom, some sort of back room commune. This guy really was going through the most. But it didn't affect his results at varsity. This boy was doing brilliantly. He got straight A's. Despite the fact that he came from these circumstances and had to wash cars till midnight, the bra was excelling. He had a shit phone. So I bought him a phone. I bought him a Huawei. I used to fucking send him data every month. And if you look at the subject matter we would discuss when he first started washing my car, to the subject matter that we were discussing by the time, a year later, this man was telling me about Trump and why Trump is good for America. He didn't know the fuck Donald Trump was when we started out.
Exactly.
Like, you understand?
Yeah.
The phone unlocked the internet for this fucking guy, and because he already had the potential, all I did is I gave him the opportunity and the tools, and it expanded his thinking. He studied further than corporate science and political science and corporate governance because he realized this is a fucking bullshit degree. And he went on and he did a PCOM. I gave him money towards his PCOM. All I did is I was giving him the tools as much as I can. He did the rest. But it started with that device and access to the internet. So we put together a plan. And in those days, National Lottery used to pay for a lot of these things. So we put together a plan, and the plan was to build these internet hubs in schools, underprivileged schools. So the idea is you take a container, the container is fitted with fucking 20 computers, like a computer lab.
Yeah.
It wasn't an original idea. Sanlam had already done it somewhere else, but ours was just on scale. And it was like an NGO thing. We're going to take like CSR budget from different corporates and we're going to fucking build these things and it was going to be great. And National Lottery was going to fund 10 of them or whatever. And everything was approved. And then what happened was Zuma was kicked out.
Oh, right.
Right?
Okay.
It was that period of time,
Yeah.
2016, 17. Zuma was kicked out. Everybody changed in all the various organs of government. Nothing came of our idea. And whatever, water under the bridge. Fortunately, I don't have a lack of good ideas. So lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, the idea was stolen.
Of course.
Yeah. The idea was stolen. And
the execution was 10 times worse.
No, this is what happened with the execution. So imagine the budget for this thing is 100 million.
Right.
Okay. It was costing R1 million per pub. And the plan was to build 8 in the first 3 months because that was the flagship one. That's 8 million rand. And then it was going to be 100. So that's 108 million. The budget was approved. Somebody else was doing the plan. Guess how many they built? 1 in Deep Sloot. 1. I haven't heard of a second one being built ever since. But that money, my friend,
was spent.
was used.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, I used to think it's because these motherfuckers are greedy and they just wanted to eat the money. But I've since evolved in my thinking. I realized that. And this is my personal opinion, because it was my fucking plan. I think that the reason they didn't build anymore is because they said, why the fuck would we want to make these blacks clever? Keep them stupid.
It's too powerful.
That's it. Keep them stupid because if that lights, his name is Mtunzi.
Yeah.
If my Huawei that I bought Mtunzi made Mtunzi that smart. Okay, Mtunzi was elite level, clever. But my Huawei gave Mtunzi all of this added advantage and unlocked his mind. It took him out of the matrix of poor people and put him into like a bracket where he could now conduct conversations with anybody because he was empowered with knowledge. Right?
Correct.
The plan was called Empowered Devices. It had a division for comm labs, and it had a division for tablets, and it had a division for cell phones. The cell phones would go to, you remember in school we used to have top 10.
Yes.
So in all those poor schools, we'd take the top 10 students, you all get a cell phone. You understand what I'm saying? There was one for tablets. In the classrooms, the teachers would identify who, because the more rural the school, you understand what I'm saying? If I'm traveling 40 kilometers to get to school, I'm going to need a tablet that I can take home. The challenge that this whole plan had was internet access.
Correct.
Because if I'm living in Danzane or fucking in Guavuma and there's no Starlink, how the fuck am I going to access the internet where there's no towers?
So,
you understand?
So imagine 1 million Mtunzis
That's what I'm saying.
right now
Very powerful.
who don't have access to the internet.
Thank you. And that's when I realized that the plan, in my opinion, is by design. We want to make the stupid people clever.
And that's what's so diabolical about this, because Starlink is just the thin edge of the wedge for the American empire, right? You can't
Because people were saying it's a national security risk, and I'm like, who the fuck wants to steal our secrets?
But here's a calculation, and Starlink is a great calculation. Starlink can come in if we take 30%, right? That's the one calculation. What is the trade-off of that not happening? 10 million people not having internet.
Thank you. That's what I was
What's the calculation they're going to choose? The one where they take 30%.
There we go, because it's all about them. Because they don't give a fuck about the people.
And
that's it.
And then the trade-off is millions stay poor and dependent. And it's exactly the calculation at play.
And the propaganda around it is that Elon is the bad guy. Because in Ukraine, he switched it off. Of course he fucking switched it off, because Ukraine is taking billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And they are fucking chowing it. Zelensky and his bras are driving around in fucking Rolls Royces, going shopping in Paris, shopping in London. Like,
Correct.
Don't be dumb.
And not paying Starlink.
Exactly. And Elon was like, no, fuck it, let me switch it off. There's other theories as to why Elon switched it off, not because he got into a bad mood. And my thing is, when they were saying, yeah, but Elon can switch it off anytime, I'm like, well, what would be the reason for him having to switch it off at any time?
But he didn't sell those things. He gave it. It's under control anyway.
And the other thing they said is he's going to take our data, and it's all about collecting data. Everything is about collecting data. Your fucking cell phone that you're using now collects all of your data.
Right.
You're on Facebook, you're on WhatsApp, you're on Signal, you're on all these apps. It's collecting your data.
Motorcom never collects my data.
Exactly.
Come on, bro.
The data that's being collected is unavoidable. So whether Starlink is collecting it or Vodacom is collecting it, what is the issue? Also, what fucking porn are you watching? I don't care, collect my data. You know what I mean? The worst thing you're going to see about me is that I like feet. Sometimes I fucking like feet.
Man.
And now I've made the announcement on Roman's podcast, so fucking
So if I was
take my data.
so if I was a leader,
Check my nudes.
if I was a leader, number 4 would be to ban porn. I actually think it's quite bad.
Porn, I also think porn is detrimental.
Okay.
But would you ban feet porn? Yes, you're a pussy.
Just for you, yes.
So that's, yeah. So
But those are the calculations being made every day
Yes.
from a political elite that just hate us. And that's what drives me so
Yeah.
crazy. Because I think this country can turn around like that. It's not difficult. The challenges we face, I know you say, are they too big? They're not.
no, I don't mean they're too big. I mean they're much bigger than they were.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which makes it even
Which makes it more difficult.
Yes. I don't think so. I think it makes it a lot easier.
Fuck that too. I think it
think
makes
it
it
makes
easier.
it a
The other thing that we don't have, right? And I watched what's his name? The Steve Jobs replacement guy, Tim Cook.
Yeah.
When Trump was talking about, yeah, tariffs, fuck China, bring all the shit back here, we're going to make iPhones in America. And Tim Cook did an interview, he was like, well, it's actually impossible to make iPhones in America. And the reason it's impossible is because that for years, since we started making iPhones in China, okay, or India, or wherever the fuck he was talking about, their iPhone making industry has developed their skill set, right, to the level where Roman from China is able to completely assemble an iPhone in 5 minutes. Now, I can give the work to Warrick in America.
Sure.
But it's going to take Warrick 3 days to assemble that iPhone because he's not as skilled as Roman is at assembling it. And he said, that's China. So the turnaround time for the completion of iPhones that we are going to face if we make them in America is going to push the cost up so high that the iPhone is no longer going to be affordable. Yeah. So it has to be made in China. You don't just wake up and say, fuck it, we're moving production from there, we're moving it here.
Yeah.
Now, in the same way, I feel like, yes, the problems can be fixed. But I believe that without, and it's not to say that we don't have talented people and skilled people who can fix the problems, but I genuinely believe we don't have enough over there. You know what I mean? I don't know it for a fact.
Brain drain.
Yes. But I think, the brain drain has affected the turnaround potential of most of these institutions, which we urgently need to turn around. Enough to say we can't just do it overnight. And the problem is in the period between deciding to do it and getting it done. What the fuck are we going to do? It's like if we had to decide tomorrow, like Zuma said, 7-8 fucking years ago, he said, let's build nuclear power. It's going to cost R1 trillion. And everybody said, fuck Zuma, he's trying to steal money. Well, we would have had a nuclear power station
biggest
at R1 trillion. Yeah. We've spent more than that fixing and fucking maintaining and changing and burning diesel and all the cuck that we've been up to. We've spent more than that in the same period of time, and we are still in the exact same problem that we were in at the time that Zuma said, let's build a nuclear plant. Correct. So if we decide tomorrow that we're building one, it will be completed nothing earlier than
a decade. I would say. Yeah.
7 to 9 years.
Yeah.
That's a fuck up because we don't have 7 to 9 years. The quickest solution we have is to upgrade and build more of coal-fired power stations. Because coal, we've got 500 years of coal underground. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. The funny thing is, just yesterday, this is being recorded. What is the date today? 28th of April. So 27th of April. There was a story that broke about Portugal, France, and Spain all went offline. No power, all day.
Whole day, yeah.
Right? The reason is Spain went fully renewable on the 22nd of April. So they did 5 years on fully renewables and the whole fucking grid shut down. Coincidence? I think not. It doesn't work.
No.
What did Cyril Ramaphosa recently do? President Cyril Ramaphosa, sorry, Mpati. President Cyril Ramaphosa recently signed a deal with Ursula von der Leyen at a wine farm in fucking Constantia.
EU, yeah. Yes. For the just energy transition.
For 4 billion euros in fucking green energy investment. Fuck that. It's not going to work. But in the period between receiving it and it not working, we're going to suffer.
Yeah.
And then we're going to suffer more. And they start building fucking nuclear and start upgrading the coal infrastructure. Otherwise, how can we develop? Because all of the developed nations developed on the back of fossil fuels.
Correct.
And now they're saying, you guys can't do that.
Which is also something when you talk about, since 1994, have you noticed the sheer amount of NGOs that have come into this country?
Which are the devil. NGOs are the fucking devil.
And they have gone to court, and the law emanating from those court cases has been diabolical. Laws on the education system. Like, remember he had OBE.
Yeah, outcome-based education.
Washington think tank put that into the laws.
And now we've got that billable.
The billable, right? And
NHI.
And then NHI, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who is called that for them in return for ARVs. That's my conspiracy. But anyway, because the NHI white paper is from 2010. Mr. Zuma came in to become president and did ARV deal like that same year. And then
remember, we need ARVs.
Yeah, we really do. And they also did the Prevention of Illegal Eviction Act. So now, as a landlord, it's basically stupid to own property.
100%, yeah. Especially like, I mean, we used to do a lot of the building evictions in town.
Yeah.
I've been on a few of them, and I mean, like mates of mine in the security industry that handle that type of shit. Yeah. You've really got to get very clever and very fast with how you get people out of your building.
Which decreases the property market.
5 minutes into you evicting them.
Yeah.
Along come the NGOs and the human rights lawyers, and they say you can't do this. And they are all paid by someone.
And then what is the result of not being able to evict people?
Fires, buildings collapse, 80 people die. But the 80 people who die are poor. Who gives a fuck?
Who gives a shit? Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, apparently no one does.
No one cares. Because up to now, those 80 people that died in that fire in that building in town.
I don't know the name of a single one.
Who are they? You see what I mean? Nobody really cares about these people. And that's troubling. And it's not to say I care the most. I don't care. But I care because I realize it's a problem. So I'm not saying I want to care, but we have to care. And I feel like that's, maybe I'm too poor.
No, but there's a self-interest here. Like, if I want my children to live here peacefully, like, other people need to be peaceful as well. And what makes them peaceful? Wealth, education, opportunities, savings. Like, these are the things that make a civilization. And if we don't care that 100 people die in a farm.
Yes, 100% true.
It impacts selfishly.
What have we become? Yeah. What have we become? If we don't care that people die in a fire in a building that was derelict, that should have been shut down, those people should not have been in that building. Nobody cared because, fuck them, they're poor, let them live wherever. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I was listening to my mate Zimasa Vabaza. He was giving his theory on why, for example, the CBD, Sunnyside in Pretoria, the CBD in Joburg, Point in Durban, look the way that they do. And he said it's because South Africans seed ground. And the way he explains it is that, and I love this because I think it's like I knew it, but I love the way he articulated it in that he said, Roman and Warrick are living in a building in Hillbrow. You're white, I'm colored, this man is black. You understand? We all live on the same floor and we're neighbors and we get along fucking famously. But now what starts happening is a whole lot of Zimbabweans start moving into our building. Pakistanis.
Yeah.
And the Pakistanis that move in, you live with your wife and one child. I live with my brother. And this man lives with his mom in a 2-bedroom flat. All of us have 2-bedroom flats. The numbers are on par with the size of the unit. Now in moves the Pakistani oaks. and there's 13 of them living in a 2-bedroom. And we don't like it because we're like, oh, fuck, these guys are noisy and they fucking always cooking curry and the place smells like fucking curry. It's not a vibe. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then next to them, the Zimbabweans movie. And then the cousins and the brothers and the aunties of the Zimbabweans are also there. And then the floor below, the Nigerians are inside. And now the Nigerians are running a brothel and an illegal abortion clinic out of the fucking 2 apartments. So what do? We say, fuck this, we move out.
Yeah.
You see, when we move out, that whole building is overrun with people from outside that have come in that don't give a fuck because they're not from here.
Correct.
They're in here to make as much money as they can and get the fuck out.
They make South Africa an economic zone. They're a human country.
There we go.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is the amount of sewage that the building handles goes up astronomically. So the infrastructure starts breaking. So the place turns into a shithole, literally. The amount of rubbish that they're dumping every week, because remember, the illegal abortion clinic is throwing out fucking medical waste bags. You understand? And that shit is now all over the neighborhood. And then the entire neighborhood goes down. And the drugs that are being used on site, it becomes like a drug hub, like Mimosa Hotel in town. It's a fucking super drug hole. There you'll find a barefoot white bitch falling out of a fucking window there. Do you know what I mean? Because where did she come from?
Yeah.
Norwood. You know how it is. So we allow these social ills to creep in because we cede ground by moving out. Correct. We don't stand fast and say, fuck that, this is our building, we will not allow it. Where I live now, those are the type of rules. If you fuck up in that building, you're out. Do you understand what I mean? You're out. They come and they say, no. You've been having wild parties. We don't do wild parties. So cheers. Do you know what I mean? And they come with the might of the Jewish lawyer. You know what I mean? They don't fuck around. So thus far, everybody that's been a problem in the building is out of there in a month.
Well, it's
because they don't cede ground. They will not let Melrose go to shit.
Well, it's almost like, Warwick, if you have dominion and you control it and you lay down the rules, it's almost like you can live a very good life in South Africa because you refuse to allow that dominion to be ceded to others who don't belong there. Like the best example of this is like Oranje.
Pretty much. I was going to say the Afrikaners do it.
But I assume something like, I haven't been to Eldorado Park in many a year, but I assume there the same thing happened under different pretenses.
But
like I'm sure it happens in your community as well.
Yeah, you know what the issue is in the coloured areas, the so-called coloured areas. So your Aldos, your Wentworth, your Cape Flats, is that there's been a problem of gangsterism for 40, 50 years. Okay. My grandfather, Cisco, we had his unveiling about a week ago. And Opa Cisco, they called him the Cisco Kid. Legendary figure in Aldos. But if I'm honest, he was legendary for the wrong reasons. He was legendary because he was a gangster. Shot lots of people. People were fucking scared of him. And he walks around with his 357 Magnum and his fucking suspenders and his cut-right pants and his floshams. You know, stuff of legends. You know what I mean? And he was my opa. I love the oak. You know what I mean? When we were lighties, I just knew him as my opa. But the reputation that he had in Aldos is a celebrated one. And he's one of many. It's not to say he's the most legendary figure out of Aldos, but lighties to this day, you know what I mean? I've got uncles and cousins who are gangsters. They are celebrated because they're gangsters. But these are bad guys.
But, I mean
and that's colored areas, that's who we celebrate.
But here's the thing. The mafia that you talk about, or the gangsters you talk about, they are the ones that are giving order. They are the ones that are creating
very true.
They are the ones, like, what's his name? Pablo Escobar in Medellin, in Colombia. Medellin, the citizens love that guy. He moved in, he took out all his opponents, his soldiers made the streets safe, people could walk around.
And nobody fucked around.
No one fucked with him. He was a gangster, yes, but through the political vacuum, through an absent state, it's going to be filled by something. In Oranje, it's filled by Afrikaner identity. In Aldos, it's filled by gangsters.
Yeah.
In Rosebank, it's filled by the banks and commerce. In Melrose, it's filled by people who live in
the Jews,
right? It's going to be filled in different ways. But I'm not going to say your Opa was like a magical, great Mandela or whatever. That's
Mandela or else.
But through being a gangster, through creating this institution, kept order in that place. So it makes perfect sense. Like people like him.
Where gangsterism has evolved is like the Opa Cisco school of gangsters. It's not the same as this new crop.
Yeah.
You see, what's happened now is that, like, if you one of my favorite movies of all time is The Godfather.
Of course.
And the whole trilogy. I can recite the script word for word. My company is actually called International Immobiliare. I love The Godfather. This is my fucking favorite movie.
Right.
But it's my favorite movie because I believe there's a lot of life lessons embedded in there. But if you watch the story, you look at a guy like Luca Bracci, and where he fell into the hierarchy is that the Godfather would give the order on who gets taken out. And if you take out Tim without my permission, you are gone.
Yeah.
You cannot... You have to operate within the hierarchy. The Sopranos is the same. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of thought gets put into who gets hit. So it used to be like that with the gangsters, right? Is that this was your turf where you did your thing. This was my turf where I did my thing. And we didn't cross each other. The gangsters, I would even go so far as to say, knew and respected each other. Now and then there was a fuck up and then they'd go to war and then the war was resolved and then everything went back to normal. And the community that fell under this gangster and the community that fell under that gangster were protected, they were looked after, and they fell under this umbrella of protection.
Yes.
Right? Now, where the issue came in is that a lot of those kingpin figures in that gangster world are dead. Whether it's Westbury, Wentworth, the Cape Flats, a lot of the kingpin figures are dead. And that vacuum is filled by everybody. It's like cutting off the head of the Hydra.
Sure.
Two take its place. And then the two fight, those two die, four take its place. And so it expands. And now we're at a point where there's 16 bosses.
It becomes more intense.
Exactly.
More violent.
And now what happens is we need to get ingenuitive with the way that we conduct that violence. So some of these killings and stuff that are happening in Westbury and the Cape Flats and wherever these hits, the boys that are committing the hits are 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
You see, because remember, they've been sold this idol that if you want to become Roman or the Cisco Kid, you've got to be about your shit. But they sold that nonsense from a very young age. So from grade 8, they are hitters. Some of the most serious hitmen are 17 years old. They've killed like 30 people. Do you know what I mean? They get caught as juveniles, they go to jail, they get a number, and when they come out of jail, they fucking code in the streets. So now you've lost this hierarchy. It's now absolute chaos. There is no more hierarchy. There is no more order. There is no more structure. And if you drive into Aldo's, you see it in the streets. The place is fucked. Wentworth, you can't even go wash your car at a fucking car wash. We went to a car wash like year before last. I went with a good friend of mine. And as we finished washing the car, we literally said goodbye. Fucking they drove by and they shot this golf to pieces, like with AKs. People are not shooting with the .22s or Star 9mm. They're shooting with AK-47s and R5s. You know what I mean? Lighties. 16, 17 years old. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And every week, I mean, the Cape Flats numbers are ludicrous. There are fucking 50 people dying a week. And not all 50 of them are gangsters. Some of them are 9-year-old children on their way from school. Now, how do you rein that in? Because, you know, like in your list of things you would do as a country, I'd like you to think about, for example, El Salvador and the way that that guy came in and solved matters. Is that I feel like that is one of the first things we need to do. Is that I believe we are a very violent society. Our propensity for violence here since apartheid, very, very high. And you cannot manage a violent society with liberal ideals. No. Doesn't work. I'm in the security industry. Yeah. I can tell you how we fix problems that we are called in to fix. We don't talk to them.
You don't talk to them about the human rights and...
Nothing.
No. Just very liberal of you.
Absolutely. It's very little talking that takes place, actually. But do you know what happens?
Like,
people don't die.
Yeah.
There's order and structure. Whether we're working at a gate at F&B Stadium or whether we're working at an event. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody gets raped. Nobody's fucking cell phone gets stolen. And there's no stampedes, people don't get trampled. But unfortunately, somebody's got to make that call to say, okay, we're not going to be liberal about this.
Yeah.
Because we know who the bad apples are and we sort them out same time. And anybody in the security industry can attest. I love General Nkwazi in KZN because he adopts the same thinking. Yeah. The guy is like, listen, the people that we're fighting against are not fucking sitting down and having a cup of coffee and sitting on a podcast. When we arrive there, we say, knock, knock, knock. It's us, the police, and they start shooting. So, why the fuck must we get shot?
Absolutely.
We fucking shoot them.
But it's a good point. I actually didn't talk about crime as my sort of 3 or 4 things. But what El Salvador did was they basically had a a suspension of the constitution. I think it's still carrying on to this day. And he took the military, under which the president controls. He didn't control the police, he controls the military, developed crack teams.
Yeah, it developed like Poppe in Brazil, Italian Special Forces.
Elite Squad 1 and 2, phenomenal movies. I recommend them. But what he did was that he made sure that the people who dealt with it were only accountable to him. The military and the special task force that dealt with this. I mean, to solve crime in Hillbrow, it's very simple.
Yeah, but you've got to go in. It's very hard.
You get 100 well-trained guys.
Yeah.
You blockade it. You check everyone going in and out. You put a curfew in place. You arrest anyone who goes out of their curfew. The issue we have, and I know a lot of security guys.
But that's a human rights violation.
Oh, good. But the issue we have here are judges and police
And
NGOs cannot do anything. So you see these headlines of 20 arrested for CRT heists. Okay, how many of those have been sent to jail? 0. They were granted 5,000 rand bail. Then they just go back to Mozambique. Then they come back to 6 months later.
Or they granted bail and then their case is remanded to next year.
Correct. I mean, that's where the issue comes in. So you need a special prison to be built and a suspension of...
suspension of the Constitution, suspension of the rights that protect criminals.
Correct.
Because this is the thing. I'm not saying, fuck all the criminals, they must all die. I've got cousins in jail.
Sure.
Okay, fuck it, they must sit. But I don't want my cousins' human rights to be violated. However,
but there's different types of crime.
Yes, there's categories of crime. You know, you remember that guy that escaped from C-Max prison, Ananias Mata? I think he raped like 200 people and he murdered like 50 people. Like, what the fuck? Put a bullet in his head. He's defective. Yeah. Why are we even bothering with this guy?
Yeah.
Please. I mean, you know, like, seriously, like, let's just pause the bus. The man needs to die. Yeah. You had these fuckers that had like 40 gigs or something of child porn. That fucking Indian chick and that Burtopi.
Yeah.
Why? Let's shoot them. These people, we can't live amongst people like that. Like, let's just draw a line in the sand. That's not going to work. Yeah. When you look at a lot of the farm murders, listen, if you're breaking into a farm to steal guns and whatever, steal the fucking stuff and fuck off. Why are you burning people with irons? Exactly. Why are you raping people for 6 hours? You need to die. We can't operate with you because, you know why? It's not fair on everyone else.
Correct.
Who follows the law and just wants to live a good life. Your human rights are now infringing on mine.
Correct.
And everybody else. You're infringing on my son's human rights to exist in a country where that shit doesn't happen. I don't like it.
I completely agree. And if we suspend the Constitution, if you are drunk driving, you're not going to be sent to maximum security overnight.
No, of course.
You can have due process.
Categories of crime.
Yeah.
That's it. But if I catch you guys in a cash and transit, red-handed with the money.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, bro.
Yeah, straight to C-Max.
Inside C-Max. You know, these gangs that are fucking terrorizing communities. How are you going to fix those places?
No, Zama.
You have to get that shit under control. Zamas that are running fucking rape at unheard of levels in Krugersdorp. Remember that?
I don't even want to. Yeah, I remember that. It's full of music video.
Yes, and I'm like, what the fuck? Are we even negotiating with these people?
No.
Remember when the miners were stuck underground? Fuck those cunts. Throw a grenade, collapse that tunnel. Why are we even? What a waste of money and time. I mean, what are you doing in there?
This is Warrick's views, and I don't share them.
As you can see from the sign behind me, I said cunt, K-A-N-T. It's an Afrikaans word for side.
Yeah, I plead the fifth on this. But I would
be Roman. I don't want people to think I'm a fucking Hitlerian dictator, crazy maniac. I'm saying it because I believe.
Maybe we need someone like that.
But I believe, right? And this is what the El Salvadorian president said too. That's why I like Bukele, because I agree with this notion. I am saying, for all of the innocent, law-abiding, good citizens who just want to live a good life, that wake up every day and go to work and work hard for their families, to pay for a house to stay in and a car to drive, and for their kids to go to good schools and get an education. I like those people. And I believe we should fight for those people. Correct. Because those are the people that keep the lights on, and those are the people that keep this place existing. I don't believe that the rights of those people that are raping and murdering and doing all this shit in Zama, I don't think that they should have a right that supersedes those of the law-abiding citizens.
As Bukele said himself, if people come to him and talk about human rights, it's like human rights of prisoners or gangsters. Like, but what about human rights of
Yes, but
who can't walk at home? Who can't walk home? Although,
what about the human rights of all the women in South Africa who can't walk around at night? It's not fair.
what about those rights?
Yes,
Right?
and all the noises that are made about things like GBV. You want to solve it? Solve crime.
Shoot criminals.
That's it. Solve crime and you need to start punishing criminals. Let's not say shooting. Maybe this is better ways, but I think a 9mm bullet per person is the most cost effective. Right. I'll shoot it. You don't even have to pay me. I'll do it.
But ammo is expensive these days, Warrick.
Yeah, ammo is expensive.
We can crowdfund.
Reloads. You know what I mean? And what we can do in the prisons is we can set up the reloading apparatus. Oaks can make us bullets.
Oh, right.
You know, then we save costs. And we'll have a separate team all shackled together to pick up the brass so that we reuse the same shells. Listen, there's cost-effective ways to do it.
I prefer the Chinese method. Do you know the Chinese method? Back in like the People's Revolution or whatever, that they used to shoot the people and then send the invoice to the family for the bullet.
We're going to get cancelled here, Tim. Just cut that out. But you understand what I'm saying?
I fully understand.
And it's really not fair. Like, more than anything, it's not fair because every fucking 4 years, I spoke about this on the other podcast. I said that, the people that are voting for the leaders that we have genuinely believe that those leaders are going to save them. Okay? And they are not saving them. They are performing actions and they are participating in deals and the making of money and the building of wealth that those people who vote for them don't even know or understand.
Well, they'll never see.
And they won't give them Starlink and they won't give them the fucking empowered devices because they don't want them to know. They want to keep them in this fucking secrecy where, they can program them. They're like the Manchurian candidates and say some bullshit at a fucking rally and say, hey, don't vote for white people. They'll bring back apartheid. No, they won't. That's impossible. That's not going to happen. It's impossible. It won't happen. The reason the apartheid government, like we were saying at the beginning, could perhaps continue apartheid or could have continued it is because they had an army of 700,000 well-trained soldiers. So really, if it became a fight, they could at least fight. Bruh, if that shit happens tomorrow, no one is available to fight. No. They'll come here and they'll smite us, they'll bomb us, and that will be the end of that. So forget about that notion. But those people don't know that. And it's not their fault. It's not because they're stupid. It's because they're purposefully kept in the dark, because they are useful idiots that are there to vote. Moletsi Mbeki calls them the underclass. They're there to vote in exchange for a social grant. And every 5 years or whenever the fuck the elections are, somebody comes around and tells them how much they love them, gives them free t-shirts, and makes them the same promises that they've been making them for 30 years. That's fucked up.
Yeah, it really is.
Also, why does... Helen Zille spoke about this a few years ago. Look, I like that auntie. I don't know where you at with your...
I get along very well with her.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't know where you at with your bras. But I like her, right?
Yes.
The reason I like her, I think she speaks a lot of sense. I think the unfortunate part is, because it's her saying it. You see, like how we said at the beginning, you and I, maybe we have very similar views. We disagree on some things, but we agree on a lot of things.
Correct.
But on those things that we agree on, people are more inclined to listen to me and say, yeah, that's cool. And they'll say, shut the fuck up, you're racist. Because it depends on the messenger. And Helen Zille falls into that depends on the messenger syndrome. She will say something that is extremely sensible and a very valid point, and people will say, shut the fuck up, Coco, you're racist. And I'm like, look, I don't believe she's racist. That's my honest opinion.
On the contrary.
Yeah. I think people also don't bother to do research on her actual story. This is auntie that put her life at risk to write articles during apartheid.
They call her racist. She gave them hiding spots in the 80s in her house. So, the ANC, the Western case called Cameron Dugmore. And Cameron Dugmore is a white guy, right, leader of the ANC. He calls her racist and all this stuff. That fucking bastard was living in her basement while he was running away from the cops for political activities. She granted him refuge.
Is he a white guy?
Yes.
But is he one of those like pick me white guys? Like, hey, pick me blacks, I'm on your side.
No, he's been ANC since the 70s, so he really believes. He really believes.
But
anyway, what about her?
Because she's the messenger, people choose to ignore the message, right? And oftentimes that's what happens, right? Is there a Helen Zille figure or I'm trying to think who else that
I can zoom a figure, man.
Yeah, even he speaks a lot and say, yes, of course, yo, bro. And listen, that Pali, I ride for that Pali. Fuck everyone. I don't care what you say. I know him personally. I've sat with him and had long conversations that I can't even speak about in this interview. And I'm telling you, I have become, what is the word? Disillusioned.
Oh, yes.
With the narrative of the 9 wasted years and the Guptas. And it's not to say that it never happened.
Oh, sure.
But
shit happened.
Like with anything, how much did it really happen? Do you know what I mean? Where are the Guptas now? How's that extradition order coming along?
Yeah.
Where are the charges? Why is Tutuzani not in jail? Yeah. Why has he not been charged with anything? Can you release his fucking money? What's happening? Do you understand? Because
I know a few of the guys as well on the other side. Yeah. We were part of state capture, and they're like, we had a deal, we did it, they didn't pay us, and now they want to sequestrate us.
You see what I'm saying? It's like it stops adding up. And then, if we had the 9 wasted years, what the fuck have the past 8 years been? Because Jesus Christ, it's been terrible.
Yeah, it is.
How long does it take to fix an institution? Whenever we hear Shamila Patoi, that auntie, the NPA auntie, bro, every interview that she does, she talks about how the organization was gutted from the inside and we are just trying to rebuild the organization. How much do you earn a year? Because it's taking you quite long and we are paying you.
I think it's 5 million a year.
Brother, so for 5 million a year, you're still telling us that you're still fixing. Like, when is the fixing going to be done?
No, but listen, I work in government. And what you realize as you walk in, like the bureaucracy is what matters. The executives don't. You just have this bureaucracy that's been there for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. People who've been there since university, they control everything. And then they tell you on purpose, like, oh, you don't actually have the power to change it.
Yeah.
Like, you need a really, strong-willed, thick-skinned person to say, actually, motherfucker, I do have the capacity to change. I'm a minister or I'm the head of the MPA. I can. And they can. But the bureaucracy demoralizes them.
Yes. And also, can you really change it alone? Because, there's a lot of, interdependency. Where if I'm the head of the NPA, I also depend on the head of the judiciary and I depend on the head of SAPS and there we go. And if they don't want to play ball, fuck it, bro, I'm pissing in the wind. I just have an issue because, but then again, same example we made at the beginning. If I'm earning 5 million rand a year to attempt, to try, bro, I'm gonna do the bare minimum. Because fuck it, I don't want to give up my 5 million rand a year salary.
Yeah.
What the fuck should I do there?
So, okay, there's people coming in. We're in this coffee shop in the public. And
we're in a coffee shop, actually. We're not in Orania, I was joking.
No. If we did, we would have, I went to Orania. Have you had a cappuccino in Orania?
No.
So it's like cappuccino, whipped cream, like 3 times the size of cappuccino. It's like a dessert. It's very
freshly milked probably this morning.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So just go there for the cappuccino. It's very
I don't know. I don't know if they like me there. I'll have to see,
Like you there.
Listen, I was sitting at Four Nose the other day and this Pali, I think he's from Orania. He was massive, like fucking Dieval van Toner or something, you know what I mean? And he came and he put his hand on my shoulder, but his hand extended from my shoulder. I think his finger was on my belly button. Fucking another giant hand. And he was like, I like your bravery. I was like, so fuck, who is this guy? You know what he's like, I like your bravery. I saw your podcast. You're very brave. And then he shook my hand and his hand wrapped around my hand. Now, he could have not been a fan. Actually, if Vero clapped me, I'd be dead. He was fucking huge. And he was driving a Land Cruiser. So I didn't, it's not the person I typically expect to come up to me. And people come up to me all the time. I'm quite famous. But never Dieval van Toder. You know what I mean? And I just, obviously it's because, look, what I try to do is I try to be honest.
Sure.
Right? I'll give you a life hack. Be honest all the time. Okay?
Completely.
It's going to create situations where sometimes you'll have to have very difficult conversations. Now, be honest across the board, like in your personal life, because that's where you get to practice it. Right? Where you're going to see the harshest consequences of being honest will be in your personal life. But you have to be honest with your children. You have to be honest with your wife or your husband. You have to be honest with your friends, your colleagues. And sometimes you'll have a friend who's fat And you'll be like, Excel, you fat. Serious. It's not cool. Let me fucking organize you a Zempic and you need to start going for walks because what the fuck now? You're suffering. You've got gout. It's not okay. Your stomach is massive. And I can't allow it because you're my friend. I love you. I don't want you to be dead in 2 years or diabetic in 2 years. You need to do something now.
Sure.
And the friend might take it the wrong way, like you're insulting them. But you've got to say it. Because when your friend gets diabetes or dies in 2 years, you're going to feel like a boost because you could have said something.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to be honest with your partner. If you feel like your relationship is not going the way that you want it to go, don't just keep quiet and look for avenues and outlets. Talk about it and say, listen, bitch, you're going to need to fuck me every day because I live a high-stress life. Whatever.
Right.
If you say, my kink is feet, I'm going to need to fucking bust on your toes. Do it. You know what I mean? Or it might be awkward. Your partner might be like, you sick fuck. This is not a dirty party. But to be honest, okay? And in the same way, it's like, as a public figure or as a person in the entertainment industry or whatever, I just happened into this persona where I didn't want to talk about politics or the state of the country. I really didn't. You know what I mean? I was cool. I was very cool. I was DJing at all my gigs, talking about parties, talking about what happened this weekend, and there's plenty of content there. And people loved it. And I had a very successful and long radio career at the top tier of radio. I had fucking plenty of bitches. I have 3 children, 2 baby mamas. My life is fantastic. But it happened that I started being asked for comment on a lot of things. And I think that's what South Africa and the South African media industry creates, is that we're all pressured into having an opinion.
Correct.
You need to say something about it. And most people just say, nah, fuck it, it's not good for my career, I'm not going to do it. Others say, oh, fuck, I don't know enough about it and I'm lazy to research because I have money. When you have money, you don't notice the money you're losing. Others say, fuck, it's mainly about poor people and who gives a fuck about them? Do you understand? And for me, like I said, I don't hate poor people, but I love all people because I've been fortunate to have a long and blessed career where I've engaged with probably 1,000 times the average amount of people that normal people engage with. Because people come up to me all the time and they'll say, like that Mtunzi guy. How I met him is he came to me and he was like, you speak Zulu? And I said, yes, I do speak Zulu. And he's like, hey man, I know you're from Vryheid. Can you help me with this? And then he had like this fucking pub thing on his pub phone. It was a DJ competition for Miller. And he was like, like he's like, I know, I see this thing. And I'm trying to understand, where is Rosebank? Like, where can I enter and how do you enter? He was asking me to explain this flyer to him so that he could take part. And then I was like, where did you find this thing? You know, like, and why are you asking me? Like, you know, my name's not on here. Why have you come to me to ask me about a competition I know nothing about? And he was like, but I know you, man. I see you on TV. You speak Zulu, bro. You Maok. You can explain this to me. You a DJ. This is a DJ competition.
Yeah.
You speak Zulu. This shit is in English.
Makes sense.
What's happening? You understand what I'm saying? And it showed me that guy believed in me really a bit too much. Do you understand?
That shocks me sometimes as well. People that meet
People come and they
like have all these like ambitions about what you're doing and how important it is to them. And I'm like, dude, I just talk to my friends, like, you know, or I take a job in government.
These opinions are my own. I don't want any, I'm not trying to influence your thinking. I'm not trying to tell people support. I support this. If you don't like it, fuck you. If you like it, I don't care. I'm just having the conversation because I believe it's a conversation that needs to be had. And I'll have it with anyone. I'll have it with Roman Kaepernick, even though he's a racist puss. I'll have it with fucking Penwell, even though Penwell is a very difficult character. People don't like Penwell online. Others like Penwell online. A lot of people have got opinions about Penwell and how he conducts his personal life. There's times when I've been on the Penwell podcast where people will be like, why are you talking to that guy? He has too many baby mamas. And I'm like, why is it your problem? Are you one of them? You know, shut the fuck up.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
No, what is wrong with that?
It showed me that sometimes we don't realize the impact that we have on other people. And it's not to say that I'm fucking Andrew Tate or Donald Trump. But whatever that impact is that I have on the few people that I have it on, it's important to them. Yeah. I saw it also with the colored statement when I said that I'm no longer colored. Bro, colored people were genuinely hurt. I went to a PA rally, Gaten McKenzie's rally at Orlando Stadium. They booked me to DJ there. And I got there, and obviously it was a fucking colored festival. And when I got there, it was very soon after the statement. Bro, this lady came to me and she was like, "Hi, Warras. Je maakt my hart seer." I was like,
Shame.
what the fuck? Like her eyes were watching it. And then she was holding my hand and she said, "Why did you say that shit, fam?" And I said, "Well, auntie, I don't resonate with the culture." So I wasn't saying it to say fuck coloreds. I was saying it because I was saying that me personally as Warrick, I identify more with Zulu culture because that's how I was raised and that's how I live my life. And it's the culture I follow, you know what I mean? We slaughter goats and we do the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's me, that's me personally. But I wasn't saying it because I was saying, you oaks are shit, you know? And she was like, "Yeah, but you know, my daughter really is the biggest fan of you. And we've been watching you on TV for years. And as when you see and say, guys own some mensa." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, that's deep. She sees me as a fucking representative of all colored people everywhere. And she was disappointed that I said that because she felt like coloreds need me and I need to do more for coloreds.
You renounced them.
And I renounced them, you know? And I was like, it's not that deep. But again, it showed me that the words that I utter have impact. And like I say, you know, people always do this thing where they try to compare you to whatever their ideal is. Fuck you. I'm not trying to compare to your ideals. Like I'm saying, I'm not trying to be Piers Morgan or Andrew Tate or whoever the biggest, or Joe Rogan or the biggest are in the world. Me, where I operate, there are people who matter and I matter to those people and my opinions matter to those people. So I feel like I have a responsibility and a duty for those people, whoever's listening, whoever's watching, whether it's 5,000, 50,000 or 500,000 or 5 million, to tell the truth. Do you understand? Not be fake.
Yeah, I fully agree. Telling the truth was very sort of unpopular since the 90s. I found the end of the Cold War ended like truth, and then it all became politics, and it all became PR, and it all became...
And it all became, why? How does this benefit me?
Yeah, and all that bullshit. And I've never shied away from saying what I always thought. It got me into a lot of trouble, as you...
Yeah.
Before and after.
You notice that when you articulate your thoughts, you are saying what people are thinking. Because you're thinking it.
Apparently, that's what people say.
But nobody really wants to say it publicly. Remember, when you say it publicly...
I still don't know why. We have freedom of speech in this country. We have the Constitution, which I don't like, but you fucking use it.
I think people are bang. Like generally, I've also noticed that a lot of people are cowards. And I don't blame them. I'm not saying you cowards, fuck you, pussies. Yeah. I'm saying people are cowards because for them, the juice is not worth the squeeze. You know what I mean? Maybe. I can't honestly say for me, the juice is worth the squeeze. Like, fuck, I used to be on radio. Nobody will hire me now. Sure. And I used to earn a fantastic amount of money on radio.
Yeah, I get no.
But the likelihood that I'll get a radio job now, slim to none. Because
I mean, the fact that I actually made this makes me unemployable. I was shocked as anyone else to get the job offer from the minister, to be fair. I never expected it.
But he never expected it either.
Oh, he did?
He did it and then he got a call and I said, "John, what the fuck are you doing?" Sorry, Tony.
Yeah, so being honest is actually a very important thing. I got to sleep well every night. I think being honest is actually a very, 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 very important thing. And if we want to actually live here, and I keep going back to this, if you want your children to live here, whatever family, right? This is a podcast for families. If you want to live here, you need to be honest about it. In a real way. And not honest like, we're going to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is easier to do business there than here, right? We're like far past.
Supposedly.
We're like far past Zimbabwe.
Yeah, but there's no sense in sitting in Zimbabwe. What will I do with my spare time?
Yeah, no, there isn't. I think being honest is a very important thing. And I think you've been very honest here, Warrick. So just thank you. I mean, you traveled quite a way.
Listen, are you a racist, bro? Because if I'm going to get cancelled for this, I need to know what sort of heat's coming my way.
You need to define the term.
You know, this is my thought.
There are groups of people that have characteristics based on their culture, their history, their religion, and their race. Yes. So everyone in the world ever is a racist, if that's the definition.
And look, my thing is, if everyone is racist, cool, let's start on the premise that everyone is racist. Yeah. Okay? I like to think of South Africa and the path to fixing problems. You know, people always say, whenever we talk, a lot of the comments I've seen is like, You're telling us about the problems that we have and nobody's identifying solutions.
Correct.
My first thing with identifying solutions is we need to list those solutions in order of priority. Okay? And what I measure that order of priority against, okay, or the seeking of those solutions is how much of it are we speaking about online. The only reason we speak about I'm using online is because that's where we all come together. Like Elon said, if Twitter is the town square of the world, that's where we all come together to discuss these ideas. Now, that's not to say that Twitter should be your barometer for how you measure real life, because it's really not. You'll notice most of the shit on there that you think is a big problem outside is not. However, let's just assume because we're discussing it there, let's look at, in order of percentage, what are these priorities being discussed and how much of them are being discussed in order. Racism is probably top 3. But in the priority list to finding solutions, my friend, I don't think it's even top 10. That's the honest truth. I don't care about Orania. I don't give a fuck. They can live there because they're all living there of their own volition. They sort themselves out with electricity, water, food, bitches, children, cattle, whatever the fuck they're doing in Orania. I don't care. And I don't say I don't care in a bad way. I don't care because it's not on my list of priorities. I've got more urgent matters to deal with where it's like, what the fuck is happening with the water and electricity infrastructure in Johannesburg?
Well, I mean, I think a racist would say Oranya's great, but the Zulu kingdom is not. I think the Zulu kingdom should actually have far more power and actually
big time
build its weight.
Yeah.
And then the Zulu kingdom and Afrikaners can learn a lot from each other.
Yes.
Right.
Actually,
which is something that you mentioned.
I remember we spoke about it.
But people keep saying I'm a racist. But no, I see race but in a way that's like, okay, like you can sort of learn from these people. Like if I want to be a proper South African, I need to know what the fuck it is, right? I need to know what a Xhosa thinks or what a colored thinks, or there's such thing as a colored think, like not all colored, but where do you come from? Why does it matter? Like Gayton McKenzie, I interviewed him a few years ago, and it's through him that I realized, okay, like the PA, his political party, has a view about this, but why do they have a view about that? Because everybody he talks to says this is a major issue. It's not a major issue in fucking Rosebank, right?
No, 100%.
It's not an issue in Sandton.
In Melville.
But it's an issue in Menenberg. It's an issue in Eldorado Park. It's an issue in colored areas around here.
It's not an issue in Camps Bay on the Atlantic seaboard.
It's not. I mean, I don't go to Camps Bay.
Yeah, but I mean.
But we go in those sort of top 5% places. Foreigners are not an issue, right? But I want to know.
Service delivery is not an issue.
What is an issue to people in this country?
Yeah.
You have to go and talk to them.
Okay. In order of priority. And because the problems that we're experiencing in Melville's or Camps Bay or Rosebank or Sandton are not the same as the problems being experienced in Alex or Philippi or the Cape Flats or Windford or Eldos or Soweto. And again, I feel like we need to address the problems in those areas because they affect more people, just by numbers.
Yeah.
And in those problems, racism is not one of them.
Oh, cool.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
But when you look at what dominates, today I saw an article of, what does it say? Unmasked. The Twitter account that Elon Musk subscribes to. I don't know, it's called Twitter Boss or Boer maak 'n plan.
Twitter Boss, yeah.
Yeah, Boer is hierso, some stupid Afrikaans name, and it's a white toppy with glasses, and they're like, News 24, IOL, Times Live, all of the fucking media pages are talking about, who cares? I don't care who the fuck that guy is. There's lots of pages on Twitter that are there to spread propaganda. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Why are we all writing about this one? Who cares?
Yeah.
While that's going on.
You spent weeks.
Yes, bro. They spent weeks on that one. So
an anonymous guy.
Another one was when Thabo Mbeki decided to speak. We just said, in the time that he was leading, there was 5% growth and. I would love to hear his thoughts on those things from a perspective of some solutions I think that I implemented in my term as president are X, Y, and Z. What do they tell us about from his whole fucking speech?
AIDS.
Zuma was a spy.
Oh, right. Oh, you're talking about the speech, okay.
No, that's what the excerpt they took from his speech was Zuma was a spy. And I'm like, who fucking cares if Zuma is a spy? Right now, Zuma is an old man running a political party called MK.
Yeah.
I don't care if he was a spy. We can get to his spy stuff. At number 12 or 13 on the list of priorities, let us fulfill 1 to 10. So crime.
Don't you feel like a lot of the media is like just gossip? Like a lot of the shit.
A lot of the media, I feel like a lot of the media is bought and paid for. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that they comment on and a lot of the viewpoints that they have, remember that whole liberal thinking, it's completely out of touch with the list of priorities.
Correct.
You know, and when I listened to 702, and I was an avid listener of 702 from John Robbie Day. I listened and then it's,
you had to fall, my friend.
From the morning till the fucking afternoon, I have to hear about how Elon Musk is actually in charge of the government and Trump is a boss. And I have to hear about Trump is destroying America because of the tariffs with China. Ha, ha, ha. And the stock market is crashing. Literally, they're like, wow, Trump and his stupidity, this man, stock market has gone down by I don't know how many points. 2 days later, biggest bounce back in history. None of them have spoken about it. Why? Because they all lean this way. So they'll only talk about stuff that exists in their echo chamber. Now, we can't be having that. 702, in my opinion, is an important platform where discussions need to be nuanced. Have those discussions. Again, let it be solutions driven. Stick to the list of priorities. What is a priority 1 to 10 on the things we need to fix? Because racism is not one of them. And fucking Elon Musk and Donald Trump are not one of them. We've got bigger problems here. Why are our ministers protected by bodyguards and blue light brigades that cost in excess of 6 million rand a month? That's not cool. They don't need that level of protection. No one's trying to kill them, bro.
No.
And even if they are trying to kill them, nobody is that good. Sorry. And if someone is trying to kill them and is that good, my brah, you're talking about, Russia-Ukraine technology. They'll fly a drone with a bomb on it into the windscreen and flatten you. Those other cars that are there in your fucking protection detail won't even factor in. And that drone is so fast, you won't have time to avoid it while driving. So let's cut the security by 80%. You need 1 car with fucking 4 bodyguards, 2 with the principal and 2 at the back. That's all you need. From the president down, let's cut that cost. Those are priorities. What's happening with crime? We've got a private security industry. We've got 700,000 registered private security guards or more under CIRA. Of that 700,000, 400,000 are useless. We can cut them immediately. Let them stand at the gates filling in books and opening boom gates. And then let's focus on this hyper-skilled, you know what I mean? Pretoria spec, the ones who bodyguard Elon Musk. Right. And let's approach those guys and say, hey, Owens, what sort of plan can we make here? How do we incorporate you into the crime-fighting apparatus of South Africa? What do you need?
Can we give you the rights to arrest and detain?
That's it.
All the things.
Let's get helicopters in the sky. Let's get drones. Let's get what we need. And let's go in and start fixing.
You're in an industry, and I would suspect at the drop of a hat, they'll be like, yes, we've been waiting for this for 20 years. We just want to help. Right? I assume that's it.
I also assume that's it because, post 1994, this is one of my favorite documentaries. Executive outcomes. Not because I necessarily condone or support what private military contractors were doing in Africa, but I definitely understand it. Yeah. And I can see how the good idea part of it can be of benefit to the countries that made use of it. So
executive outcomes, it was a PMC, private military corporate.
It was a private military contractor. Yeah.
Contractor. And they got contracts in, if I remember correctly, Liberia.
Angola. Papua New Guinea.
And
Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone was a big one, of course. And what they did, there was, after in the 80s and the 90s, there was a civil war between different groups. So the proper governments of those countries gave a contract to executive outcomes to come and stabilize the country.
Correct.
So the RUF...
Because the rebels...
were cutting people's arms off, provoking...
And they were taking over mining rights to places and all the blood diamonds.
Executive outcomes had 1 helicopter and like 30, 40, 50 guys at the beginning.
When they started.
The contract was $2 million. All of it went to the salaries. They won a helicopter. And they blew out the RUF terrorist organization
100%
in a matter of a month or 2 with a contract.
And then what they started doing is because they had backing from a British, that British backing, pounds.
Yeah.
What they would do is they'd come in and they'd say, okay, Roman, we're going to fix the country at our cost. Right? When we're done fixing it and we've sorted out your little rebel problem, the deal we're going to make with you is we are going to take over XYZ mining concession, a port of entry, oil fucking rig or whatever, the Sanangol.
The Chinese method, right?
That's it. We'll take over that shit for a period of 1 year. We'll secure it. We'll make sure. And the deal we strike with you is we go halfies on whatever we pull out the ground. Good deal.
Yeah.
All the presidents took it. All of the people took it because it didn't require them outlaying any costs.
Correct.
And obviously it came back to executive outcomes 100-fold. And as is the thinking of most of the liberal elite, people have a problem when brilliant ideas make the people who come up with them lots of money. You mustn't make money. What the fuck? We fought, died, dude. You know what I'm saying? We fought and died to fucking secure this mine. And now we want a piece of the fucking mine. That's the deal. These people sign on the dots. It's like, no one is fucking them over. They still get their things.
You can't do contracts, Warrick. What's wrong with you?
See?
We need to educate.
And the Americans had a big problem with it. And then, legislation was passed at the highest court levels to outlaw the use of private military contractors. And then when the Americans do it, it's called peacekeeping. It's exactly what Blackwater did in Iraq. But anyway, I would go to the urban Barlows of the world and say, because he's still alive and he's still brilliant.
He lives right in Pretoria.
He lives in Pretoria. Do you know him? I really want to meet him. He's my hero.
I know of him.
Yeah, I just want a photo and maybe he can give me a cap or something.
I know someone who knows him.
Yeah, please speak to them. Please jot that down. But
He's the one.
you go and you approach those people and you say, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
They will build you a security plan and a plan of execution.
Yeah.
Okay? Gangsterism, all of these murders taking place, my friend,
It's over.
1 month flat,
Yeah.
that is over. Because they know what they're doing.
Correct.
That's that Bukele logic. Use the army. Because they trained to a level where no one that's fucking up the place can compare.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
You don't use the army to keep people in their home for a virus.
Brother, you see what
It's
I'm
the
saying?
army to shoot people.
Look, I don't think we'll be able to use the army. I think we'll be able to use a certain division. We'll be able to use our special task force guys, super talented.
Excellent, yeah.
And as I say, in the private security industry, brother, me personally, I can bring 1,000 guys tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? That I know personally. Just on WhatsApp, I've got about 800 Zulus. I'm bringing them. We'll fix the place. Do you know? I believe in Maoks.
Yeah.
And I think that once we incorporate the use of private thinking and private resources, we'll fix a lot of stuff. And I feel like once you fix crime, remember these things are all interconnected.
Yes.
Once you fix crime,
A lot of other shit.
a lot of other shit starts to fall into place.
Fully agree.
And now you are actually protecting and defending those very human rights that Mandela and them fought for, of the citizens who just want a better life. We're not doing fuck all for those people.
That's a good point.
You see what I mean? We are doing stuff for the fucking prisoners that are the ones infringing on those human rights. No, that's a backward system.
Never underestimate the intolerant minority. If given the power to do something, because they always win. Always.
Are we in it?
We're intolerant and we're in a minority, but we're not.
Yeah, we're not in. Well, we're in now. He knows the urban Barlow. So that's the first start. You take me to the fucking Agri-SA meeting. I'll go and speak to Jacob
Don't
Zuma.
worry about ABSA. I got to pay the people.
There we go. Because you remember what I said to you about, I actually felt, when the land thing happened,
Yeah.
I don't think it was about Afrikaners and white people's farms at all.
Zulus.
I think it was about the Zulus and the Ingonyama Trust.
Fully agree.
I don't think it had anything to do. And I just feel like, okay, now media, what populated the news cycle was, watch out, white farmers, Trump is giving them asylum. And now all the farmers are going to leave. And I'm like, I don't think this bill is about them at all. I think this bill is about the Ingonyama Trust and wanting to take over that land.
It's a center of power they can't control yet.
But I don't know. We're just saying.
We just got the bills this year.
Yeah, we just conspiracy theory.
Warrick, thank you so much.
Pleasure, brother. I'll tell you a story about the racism thing. Remember I told you I grew up in Vryheid?
Sure.
Vryheid, very racist town. Okay? Because very set in its ways, boer, dorpie, whatever. It was racist before I came along. It was racist while I was there. It's racist after I left. Fuck it. Not a priority for me. I came to Joburg. I carried on with my life. It really hasn't affected me at all. It hasn't affected me to the degree where I am now somehow debilitated.
Sure.
Right. When I went back there, 2000 and something, after varsity, like, I don't know, maybe 2006, 7, I can't even remember. I had a white girlfriend. And we went for a funeral, which was on the Saturday. And because it was a colored funeral, we drank the whole night. We got shit-faced. So on Sunday morning, we were hungover. And I said to her, Book, let's go to Wimpy. There's one fucking Wimpy in the town. Clap a Wimpy move. We're going to go have something at Wimpy, try and cure this hangover. So we arrived there fucking disheveled, from Joburg. We hung over. We sit down at Wimpy and it's after church. NG Kerk, full up in the Wimpy. And as we sat down, they fucking bring us our menus. We're about to order. This toppy here with his wife and his 3 children. He looks at me like this. He had his fucking napkin there. It's just in the middle of his meal. He put his knife and fork down and he pulled out his napkin and we said, "What's up?" And he got up, told his family we're vying, and they just left their food. And he walked out and he looked at me and I looked at him and I what the fuck is this toppy? And he walked out of Wimpy because he was not going to sit down and have a meal.
Right.
In a Wimpy where there's an interracial couple sitting next to him. Fuck that. Guess what? I didn't give a fuck. I ordered a double Wimpy cheeseburger. I chowed that fucking burger. I drank my mega Coke. I sat with my book, and we had our meal, paid our bill, and we fucked off. Nobody did anything to me. Nothing happened, and I couldn't give a fuck about that toppy. Now, what I could have done is I could have filmed it, and I could have tweeted about and said, "Look at this racist. Everybody pick me, support me, because I went through a racial episode." Boo-hoo. Bok was more offended than me. I didn't give a fuck because I grew up in that town. I know how it goes. I've been called the K word. I've been in fucking countless fights. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But while that was happening, the gym that I went to, Vic's gym, there was Jabulani and Warrick. We were the only 2 non-whites in a gym with over 100 members. Because it was the only fucking gym in the town.
Yeah.
Everybody trained there. And some of the members in the gym were extremely racist and wouldn't train if we were in the gym. And some of them were mildly racist. And some of them were minimally racist. But over the years that I trained at that gym, my best friend at the gym, his father had a fucking four-tracker wheel and rifles and a tree clear on the wall at their house. You know what I mean? So they were seriously like...
Very serious, yeah.
But Tins was my best friend. We rode home from school together on our bicycles. We would stop by Mian Panakuk and buy pancakes together. If I went to a Mian Panakuk alone, I couldn't get pancakes. Tins, you understand? Tins would rather not have pancakes if I couldn't have pancakes.
Right.
So Mian Panakuk had to comply because Tins was a rugby superstar. So everybody wanted to be Tins's friend. And Tins was my friend. You understand?
Yeah.
And Tins was still a racist, but he couldn't understand why he likes me so much and why we bras. And we weren't gay. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Might be worse.
Somehow, over the period of time that we were friends in school, something in Tins's thinking changed. And something in mine changed too. I knew all white people to be a certain way, but here was Tins, he was my friend and we were close. And Tins knew all colored people or non-white people to be a certain way, but here was Warrick, he was my friend and we were close. And it culminated in him actually standing up to his dad, because I wasn't allowed it. I never went to his house. You know what I mean? His dad didn't know who I was. We went to gym together every day. We fucking rode home together, like I say, to and from school. He went his way, I went mine. We were bras. And when he had to actually introduce me to his dad, the bravery that it took for him to say, "This is Warrick, this is my bra." Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I could tell he was fucking sweating bullets. You know what I mean? His dad's name was also Tins. And then he was like, "Boh, that's Warrick." And his dad, like, he thought about it for a second. But I imagine, and I don't know this for a fact, this is my lived experience. He'd been telling his father about me for 3 years. Do you understand? And his father probably liked me because I was his son's best friend.
Sure.
And we gymmed together and we did everything together. I pushed Tins in the gym and on Vicky Shumaker, we did our padwerk together and we fucking, you understand? You were bras. I think his father in his mind thought of me as his best friend, even though he didn't know me. And that entire time, he didn't have to mention that I was colored. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now when he finally meets me and I am colored, can he throw away all he knows about me as a person and who I am to his son? Because, fuck, you colored, cancel this friendship. Of course not. Yeah. And he was like, "Hello, Warrick, aangenaam, Martinez." Do you understand? Then I was like, "Hello, this way, that way." And the rest is history. And he was a well-known Hey, bro.
Half a beer guy.
He was like a super, like a 3-clear guy. You understand? And it showed me at the age of 16 or however old I was, 17, that something in people's thinking can change. I don't know what the circumstances are, the conditions are that change that thinking.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone can change, but I know it worked for me. So I don't accept, when you have these type of conversations and you say these type of things, people always attack you and say, that's not my lived experience and you're privileged and fuck all. And because you're light-skinned, it's not the same as me because I'm dark-skinned. Fuck you. This is my lived experience. This is my version of events. And I think that my version of events is possible for other people.
Absolutely.
So I have this notion that I think that when people start mixing and people start coming to Joburg and going to Wits from Walkerville, from Vryheid, I think that is where we might see real change happen in individuals' lives. Because I just honestly feel like the vast majority of black people don't know enough about white people. Correct. The vast majority of white people don't know enough about black people. And now they live in the sphere of each other where it's like, I don't actually know how Roman is, but I'm told that he's a racist foos. So I have to think like that because I have to be on my team and the people that are my color and my tribe and fuck that guy. And vice versa. We live in these gated communities and we in Melrose with the Jews, so hey, we don't want blacks here, bro. Do you understand what I'm saying? And until that changes and people are allowed that level of access, when the economy improves and when crime goes down and when you have living conditions, exactly.
We become more a trustworthy society.
Guaranteed. Because I can assure you, my next door neighbor in the fucking 3-bedroom penthouse there at Melrose Arch is probably never going to meet an oak from Alex.
No.
Highly unlikely.
Except as an Uber driver. Or
not even. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the Uber driver might be from Zim. But it's not going to happen. And I feel like we are not creating that inclusivity that Mandela dreamed of.
Well, I mean,
the country's
the 1% growth keeps you stagnated.
And it keeps people separate. And the longer that goes on, the longer those people will keep voting for the status quo. And the longer they'll remain voting for their own self-detriment. And the longer these people will keep living in their bubble because the money that we have keeps us away from that shit. We don't have to deal with service delivery problems. Listen, nobody's getting raped or murdered in Melrose, my brother. You can't even come into Melrose. Come correct. Do you know what I mean? But we pay for that.
Of course.
A fortune.
Of course.
And not everyone has access to that. And why can it not be like that for everyone when we live in such a fucking place that is beautiful, that attracts millions of tourists a year, that has got mineral wealth under the ground to cover everybody's costs?
And that has fundamentally good people. That's what annoys me. That's what annoys me a lot. Yeah, I know.
Hardworking, highly skilled people who don't get the opportunity to contribute those skills for the betterment of the collective. So everybody keeps their skills for themselves. When I spoke on the other podcast and I said that if white people leave, the country will collapse, people chose to take it the wrong way. When in actual fact, what I was saying is that's because what Tim Cook said. You haven't got this development of skill across the board.
Correct.
But you certainly have it when it comes to a white Afrikaans farmer. You can't fuck with them with the development of skill at a farming level.
For sure.
That's not to say that black people can't farm.
Yeah.
Who the fuck said that? But certainly not enough black people are farming to replace what vacuum will be created with the exodus.
At a commercial level, yeah.
Always. It's not possible. And that's not because they're stupid or they don't know what they're doing. It's because this hasn't been a thing for them. It just hasn't been a thing. What the fuck? You can't force people. Imagine forcing people to go and farm. Oh, I don't want to farm. If you had to offer me a farm next door to Bakkies Boerta, I'm out. I don't want to move to Free State. I don't want a fucking farm.
No one asks why there are no Africans on the Tour de France. Because they don't want to cycle.
I want to rise by 80, bro.
Is a Tour de France racist? No. I assume black people don't like cycling for no reason.
And let me tell you something. From a level of athleticism, if a black guy like a Usain Bolt had to decide that he's cycling tomorrow, probably fuck Lance Armstrong, he'll shit on everyone. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
But he doesn't want to cycle, bro.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
I'm on the black people's side in this case, bro. Does that make me racist? I don't know.
It makes you... Yeah, it makes you racist. You're racist, Roman.
Anyway, we've been here long enough, Warrick.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Keep well. I've got to go do the other podcast now.
Yeah.
I'm a podcaster.